Hello! It is me, person from the last video, but now I'm clean! I would like to talk to you today about this book right here, The Institute by Stephen King. And I finished it a couple of days ago and it generated enough questions and thoughts that it felt appropriate to make a video about it. So this is the only Stephen King novel that I've ever read. I have barely seen any of his movies before this because I'm a scaredy cat that didn't sleep for months after having seen a specific part of Sunset Beach when she was 14 because she was scared that people would murder her if she walked out of her house. So yeah, I never really watched the movies. It's kind of weird though, because after just reading one book by Stephen King, I can kind of understand how most of his books would play out. I kind of understand his way of writing really well. It was an interesting feeling. I felt like if I would read books from Stephen King that he made several years back, I would still get this kind of same feeling. Then maybe you would say that, well, most authors have a special kind of style when writing, so that's not unique at all. To which I would say, why are you interrupting me? But also, yes, of course, most authors have a special style, but since Stephen King has such a routine for writing, he's written like over 50 books or something, that many of his books have the same kind of vibe or something. And I'm not trying to say that this is a copy of other novels that he's made before, but just that it has a certain structure to it all, that even though I haven't read anything else, it feels familiar to me. For those of you that don't know the plot, this is a horror book, although I will get into the genre a bit later on in the video. And it's mainly about like 3 or 4 people, depending on how you look at it. It all starts out with this ex-cop who gives up his seat on a plane and instead decides to hitchhike all over the US and then ends up in this small little town out in nowhere and takes a job there working nights. Then we do a really big leap to what seems to be a completely different story. It doesn't feel like it can be connected, but it will be connected like later on. Anyway, we jump to this young boy. He's a 12-year-old and he's this very smart kid. He's got accepted into 2 different universities and he really wants to go. However, one night a couple of people breaks into his home when he and his parents are sleeping and murders his parents and kidnaps him. Later he wakes up in what seems to be his room, but there are some differences from what it used to look like. For instance, there's no longer any window. He soon realizes that there are other kids living there as well, some younger than him and some older than him, and they're all trapped in this what seems to be some kind of institute. There are adults there as well, but they are not there to take care of them in any way. So this was a ride. I would actually say that everything up until the ending was excellent. I mean, I liked the ending as well, but a bit too much was explained for my taste. I like my horror to be more mysterious. The ending should be like if someone had torn out the last chapters and it just ends with someone walking out the door and then there's nothing else. That level of confusion is what I want from my horror books. So in terms of horror, I would actually put this on a medium level. Sure, it is creepy that children are kidnapped and like tortured and all of that, but the writing didn't really scare me that much. It had more of a thriller vibe to it. And maybe you will think me crazy for not thinking this was dark enough to be a horror, since it had kidnappings and murder and torture and like so many horrible stuff. And maybe you're right, but it was like the feeling of it. It didn't read like a horror novel to me, even if it was a lot of horrible stuff happening. The characters of the book felt very distinct to me. Not like their caricatures, kirked. Anywho, but like you understand who is good and who is bad. That is not the mystery of the book. At least I thought it was pretty clear that the adults doing experiments on young children are the bad guys. But maybe that's just me. But it kind of felt like, from a reader's point of view, those are the bad guys. And sometimes that can be nice. Well, not experimenting on children. That I don't think that's ever nice. But knowing who is good and who is bad. We know who to root for, and we have a clear good versus bad, and we are reading to find out if the good people win in the end. It is quite easy to understand why people love to read his books. This one went by so fast. It was quite fast paced, it had action and the supernatural and this David versus Goliath fight with children fighting an evil organization throughout it all. It is quite fun to think that if this had not been a Stephen King novel, it would probably have been labeled as a young adult novel. It's fun to read a book when there are several different characters and you feel like you can relate to or at least understand a lot of them. You might not agree with them, but they are interesting and they feel like complete characters that really have a purpose for being in the story, and they also help drive the story forward. I enjoyed reading about most of the characters, but it was also really easy to cheer for the good guys. It kind of felt like in Get Out, the movie by Jordan Peele, where you just feel so hooked on the story and you just want this protagonist to win and get out safely, that you just want them all to die, all those white people. Just kill them. It got intense. Or maybe like with Joffrey when he died in Game of Thrones. How many of us didn't cheer when he fell down all with his face all purple like a smurf and his parents had to watch him die? How happy weren't we then? I mean, it was a pretty good feeling. And it's such a talent to be able to portray something like that that really makes us feel those intense feelings for different characters. And you know that when it's done really well, it's like rainbows are shooting up of everyone and we're just so happy and we're just high-fiving each other through our televisions. And that is one thing I really think that this book has done well. Yes, we are cheering for the children and we really want them to succeed. But even more than that, we want the bad people to die by their own experiments and be crushed like the dirty little poop they are. I'm just gonna throw it out there. They did my favorite character dirty. They worked their tiny little hands to the bones to then just be cast away and replaced by some tiny man-child hero that we often saw in 90s movies, that we were indoctrinated into thinking that, ooh, they're the good guy and we should cheer for them, even though they didn't really do that much that was worth praising. Anywho, I would like to recommend this book to those that want a fast-paced thriller with very dark tones and something else. Good versus evil plot. And a clear good versus evil plot. Yeah, didn't read that from the text down there at all. No, I know this all by heart. The stuff that I wrote about an hour ago. I kind of feel like this is a book that would fit most types of people. I mean, it did win the Goodreads Choice Award for Best Horror. So I guess a lot of people have already stated that they like it. But still, even though it might actually be a 4 out of 5 star book, I gave it a 5-star rating on Goodreads because it was an exciting read and I had fun the whole time, kind of. And yes, the ending wasn't as good as the rest of the book, but I still felt like I could enjoy myself through it all, and it was a very fun David versus Goliath journey or something. I don't know. This book was good. I enjoyed reading it. You can read it too if you want. Not my copy, because I have to return this to the library. Or yeah, of course you can read it too, because I'm going to return it to the library. I do not know what I'm talking about now. Bye.